So everybody can hear me and see my screen clearly.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. Good evening. You're welcome to this week's FX review with Great White FX for the 10th to 14th of July 2023. So without taking so much of our time, we're going to start off with the fundamental news outlook for next week. So next week, we have GBP claimant count on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have rate news on the New Zealand dollar. Then we have US CPI, core CPI. Then rate news for the Canadian dollar. That's very, very important. Any rate news on any currency pair is very, very important. Then we have, next week have some high impact news, but the rate news is going to be on the New Zealand and the Canadian dollar. So for those who trade those pairs might have volatility going into next week. So without taking so much of our time, let's get down to the pairs. So we're going to start off with NASDAQ. So looking at NASDAQ, if we look at NASDAQ using our swing system, we can see that NASDAQ is still technically in an uptrend, looking at it from the daily. Well, if you look at it on the 4-hour, we have a breaker in play on the 4-hour. We have this high here, as we have this high here, this low here, this. Let me put back a candle so that I can work on this. Then we have this, and we can see that price has already retraced into the breaker, and there was a massive rejection. So looking at this, if we go back to the daily setup, you can see that there is massive rejection here. So let's look at the weekly candle. Let's see what the weekly candle has for us. The weekly candle is slightly bearish, kind of like slightly bearish. So using this breaker as our guide, there's a possibility this may retrace a bit. There's a possibility it may retrace a bit, but the draw going into this new week, the draw is going to be first this low, then this point. Or on the other hand, you can use fib projections. You can use fib projections. So you pick your fib from this high to this low, then the projections, you would notice that this came to this 1% extension here and turned. So if this is to continue going low, you have 1490.02. That's this place will be your first target. That's if price retraces, because this might still move lower. It might still move lower. Let me go to my candle chart and let's look at it from candles alone. Say we need to see where price is reacting from. Where price is reacting from is a monthly fair value gap. Let's go to the monthly time frame. You can see it. The price tapped into it the first time, and came in there again and did not go above the previous high. If you notice, it didn't go above the previous high. So if we drop down to the weekly, we can see that we have what looks like equal highs here, second rejection from that level. Then if we go down to the 4-hour time frame, we can see this engulfing here. So this may retrace a bit. It will be best if it retraces a bit. And why do we need it to retrace? There's some fair value gaps here. It retraces into this area, fill up this fair value gap. Once it fills it up and gets rejected, then using our projections, because if we do that on this 1 hour, using our projections, your first target is going to be 14,970. Second target, 14,902. Then this low. Then if you notice, we have this 1.5 and 2. This is the midpoint. So most likely this will be a good draw on price. That is if the downside continues, because for now we have a bearish breaker that has already been activated on the 4-hour time frame. So going into this new week, we might see further downside on NASDAQ if it will before it continues to the upside. But if it decides to drop first, if it drops first without rallying first, then that means it might Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we might see price gone for any of these highs. But first, due to the setup we have on the 4-hour, a retracement and then a continuation back to either of these levels will most likely be seen going into the new week. So the next one we're going to be looking at is the dollar index. So looking at the dollar index, if we look at the dollar index from the daily, we can see that from 89.53 to 114.77, I see that price is sitting at the 50%. I see that's where price is sitting at. We have what looks like equal lows here on the weekly time frame, equal lows sitting above the 50% of the dealing range. So if we drop down to the daily time frame, look at our swing. Well, this is still looking like might further downside. Let's look at it from the candles. We might see further downside, but if we go to the 4-hour, it becomes very, very clear. We have a bearish breaker here. We have this high, we have this low, I have this. You can't see it here, but if you go back to your candles, you're going to see it. This is 103.54, and this high is 103.57. So there was a sweep above here, price didn't close above it, then price dropped. So going into this new week, we'll be waiting to see a retracement first. This low has been taken out, this low has been taken out. So we have a new lower low. So we'll be waiting for a retracement to fill this imbalance here on the 4-hour. So we'll be waiting for something like this. This would be preferable into here, then something like this, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, then price coming to sweep this level first. That's 109.92. Then you have 101.50. Then before this equal lows here, So going into the new week, we are looking at lower prices on the dollar index. Then the next one we're going to be looking at is the Euro USD. Looking at the Euro USD, we can see that price did a sharp turn back into here. It didn't go down that much. Let's look at what price did here. From this swing low to this swing high, it didn't get to the 50% and it turned. So looking at this, let's go to the 4-hour time frame. If we look at this from the 4-hour time frame, we have a breaker here, a bullish breaker. You won't see it very clearly except you're looking at price on the candles. Now, we see this low here is 108.35. Sorry, this low here is 108.33. This low here is 108.33. You can see it's lower than this. Then this other low is 108.33. So price went slightly below this and turned. Let's go to the 1-hour. So you can see it. You can see it clearly here. Went below this and then broke this level. So going into the new week, we'll be waiting for price to retrace into this structure point here. And noteworthy also, there's a fair value gap on the weekly. There's a fair value gap on the weekly, that's here. So if we go now back into the 1-hour, we'll be waiting for price to drop to fill this imbalance here. Let's check the 4-hour. Do we have any imbalance on the 4-hour that price may need to fill? Yes, from this point to this point. So if we drop down now to the 1-hour time frame, we would wait to see price retrace. Let's go back to the candles. Let's use the candle charts because I've already annotated this on my candles chart. So this is what we have here. the possibility, I will prefer price does not spike any of these highs here. I will prefer price does not spike, but instead, price should just give something like this, then drop into this area, fill this imbalance, then something like this, and continue back to the upside. And if that should happen, you have the projection. You have that projection of the fair value of that breaker. This is a projection of the breaker. That's what you have these fib levels here. So you have 0.5. So if that should happen, your first target is going to be 10976. The second is going to be 101, 1.1012. Then you have all these fib projections till this point, then this point. Those are levels you'll be waiting for price should the long side continue. As if price drops and doesn't close back below this weekly fair value gap, at least on the 4-hour time frame, then the up move will continue. So the next we're going to be looking at is GBPUSD. So looking at GBPUSD, this pair basically is tilted to the upside. He's stronger than the euro because of the weakness on the EURGBP. Because of the weakness on the EURGBP. So if we look at this chart, so we look at this from the daily, we can see that this is basically on the upside. Price just did a retracement. Hello, let's keep our mics on mute to reduce background noise. Let's keep our mics on mute, please. So this is just a retracement. If we look at this, we can see that price came very close to the 50% and it has rallied again. So looking at this, if we drop down to the 4-hour time frame, you can see the way price delivered and price is now up. So we have a break above all these highs here. So what we'll be waiting for going into the new week is a retracement. We're waiting for a retracement. The first point is going to be this first fair value gap. If it fails to hold that support, then this tiny one here, which also has a bullish order block, will be the next possible area for a long position. To hold that support, then a continuation. Then if this should continue to rally, where do you see price going to? First, we're going to be looking at these almost equal highs here. Price is going to come back there. We have this 4-hour fair value gap at 1.2862, then 1.2916, and then further up. If we look at this from the daily, let's look at this from the daily and see that there's a big fair value gap here before we have any swing highs. So price may try to fill this imbalance first. So going into the new week, we're looking for a retracement first, then a continuation to the upside on the GBPUSD. Then the next one we're going to be looking at is gold. Gold seems to have started waking up. Let's look at it from the swing highs and swing lows. You can see that we could call this high. This swing high was broken. Price rallied above it, created another swing high here, broke above it, then dropped, taking out liquidity here and here. If we look into our candles, we can see that there's a bullish order block here. Price dipped into it and rallied. So now going into the new week, what we'll be waiting for on this pair is a bit of a retracement. If you look at There's no retracement on the 1 hour. There's no imbalance on the 1 hour. But if you go to the 4 hour, I think there's imbalance on the 4 hour between here and here. So this is where you'll be watching to see price retrace to this point. You'll be waiting for something like this price to retrace in here, pull that support, then a continuation to the upside. That's what we'll be waiting for on gold. Then if that should happen, your first target.
So what's your GB?
Hello? Hello? Somebody was saying something.
You didn't talk GBPUSD.
I've already talked about it. Watch. You watch a recording. I'll post the recording on YouTube.
Okay, sir.
So this is the formation we'll be waiting to see play out. Then a continuation back to the upside. That is as long as price does not close below 1902. As long as it does not close below 1902, then we might see it rally towards 1956, 1967, and all these relative equal highs here on price. That will be the drawn liquidity. Because if we look at this on the candle from the daily formation, if you look at the candle formation on the daily, this is what we have on the daily. So there's a fair value gap here. This weekly fair value gap, that's here. Let me go to the weekly so that we can see clearly. That's between this point and this point. Price has just filled to the 50%. Price has just filled to the 50% of that imbalance. Do you see it? And it has closed back above it. So for this to continue bullish to the upside, it needs to close above this on a daily basis. You see, for the last few weeks, it has not been able to close it. So it needs to close above it. And if that should happen, then this fair value gap here will be the drawn liquidity. This fair value gap here will be the drawn liquidity. So that's what we'll be watching to see what price, due to the formation we have on gold 4 hour, there's a possibility we might see a continuation to the upside. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is EURGBP. Well, EURGBP did not continue the upside move from last week. Didn't continue the upside move from last week. Let's look at it from the daily. Let's see what we have on the daily. Let's look at the formation from the daily. I see that price is just sitting near this low here. Basically, this is still in a downtrend. It's still in a downtrend. It has broken this low, retraced, and dropped. But it's still standing above this level here. And see, it's still standing above this area here. So going into this new week, I can't really say for this pair. But if I drop to the 4 hour time frame and look at the 4 hour formation, you can see we have several lows here. So on this pair, I just can't see. Well, one thing I know that would tell that this pair is about to turn is if we see something like this. That's a close above these two highs. Something like this. Then we know that we have a short-term low here. But if price should rally to any of these highs, that's maybe here, and get rejected, if price rallies to this point and get rejected, maybe price rallies like this, then it's going to go lower. So for this pair, I just can't see. Looking at it, it's not bullish yet. It needs to play the bullish card. Then before we know that, it might continue to the upside. If not, it might just still drop further. Maybe sweep this 85.18 one more time. Sweep this 85.18 one more time. And if it doesn't turn from there, then we're going to be looking at already, if we look to the left, there's imbalance here. And see already there's imbalance here. So it may sweep here, fill up this, then before it starts turning back to the upside. So that's basically what we are seeing here on this pair. It's undecided for now. It's basically undecided. It's basically undecided for now. Let's keep our mics on mute. If you're not going to talk, let's put our mics on mute, please. So that's for the Euro GBP. The next pair we're going to look at is GBPCHF. The GBPCHF seems to have a bullish run. It's more certain that he has a bullish run because this bullish order block here, you see price retrace to it, it held, and then there's a movement away. So going into this new week, I would wait to see if there's any retracement of any kind. Let's go to the weekly. There's a formation on the weekly. So we see this engulfing pattern here on the weekly. This points to the possibility that this may rally. That we might see a rally based on this, but looking at it on the daily, we have wicks here, which shows that this may retrace a bit first before continuing. And if it should start the rally, you're going to be looking at 1.1506 first, then 1.1547. But this has it's more tilted to run to the upside, although the candle formations are not very, very clean. Wicks on both sides shows a lot of battle, so we need to be wary of that as well. So the next we're going to look at is the NIKKEI. So this played out well, just like I said last week. I said that if that we have a kind of a swing here already. 379, you see price didn't close above it, and then we dropped. Now we have what looks like a breaker here. Let me look at this on the 1 hour. We have what looks like a breaker here, a high, a low, higher high, then price broke through that level. So going into this new week, the possibility exists that this may retrace a bit. And if this is going to retrace, that's yen weakness. So if this is going to retrace, that means we'd also see a bullish retracement to the upside on the yen pairs before a continuation back to the downside to sweep this point and probably this point for the yen pairs. Because as you can see, the yen didn't make a new high, didn't make a higher high. Instead, it made a lower high. So this may rally. If it's going to rally, you'll be watching this point, and this does, you just be like watching the entire area here. Once it gets rejected from here and starts moving lower, then you watch for your yen pairs to continue to the downside. So based off that knowledge, if we go to the GBPJPY, we can see that we already have a breaker. We have a bearish breaker on this pair. We have this high, we have this high, this low, and this higher high here. If you notice, this high didn't take out this. So we have a swing kind of structure here. We have one kind of like a swing kind of structure, what you call a head and shoulders pattern, but I'm looking at the breaker. We have this low, this high, we have this, then. So going into the new week, we'll be expecting a bit of a retracement on this pair. We're expecting a retracement on it. Let's see. Let's go into our annotated chart so that we can easily find where we have our imbalances. Because if you already look at this, this is the formation we have. We already have a lower low here. that took out this and this. So this most likely might retrace. Maybe sweep this high, retrace, sweep this high, fill up this imbalance. If it gets rejected, then we're going to see price probably come for 181.69 or 181.26. So if we go to our annotated chart, this is what we basically have. There's a little fair value gap here that is still open. So let's just note this before we move to the 1 hour time frame. So you can see that 4 hour lines up with the 1 hour. So this might retrace in here. If it gets rejected, then it's going to move lower. So the next and the last pair we're going to be looking at is Euro Yen. Looking at the Euro Yen, this is basically due to the EURGBP's, due to Euro's weakness against the pound. This really dropped. You can see the formation. The weakness is more evident on the Euro Yen than on the GBP Pound Yen. You can see we already have this here and price has retraced. So we'll be waiting for a retracement. A retracement, probably there's a fair value gap here on the 4 hour. If price gets rejected from there, then you'll be watching this point and this point. So those are what we'll be looking for. Because if you look at this pair and look at the pound yen, the pound yen is not yet fully cleared his lows. So that shows you that if you're going to get a better short opportunity, it will be on the Euro Yen. But that will be dependent on what EURGBP does here. What EURGBP does here. So for this pair, we can't say. But if this pair shows any sign of strength, then if you're going to be selling the yen, that's buying the yen, you'll be looking to sell pound yen instead of selling Euro Yen, because the Euro Yen will be a tougher sell. So any questions? Anybody with any questions before we call it a day? Any questions? So in the absence of any questions, the recording will be posted to the YouTube. So please don't forget to like and share. It goes a long way. So I thank you all for taking your time to attend. I wish you all a blessed and beautiful weekend and a wonderful trading week ahead. So good night, everybody.